Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the live streaming Strumstick lessons. And thank you for everybody who comes back week after week. And I see Don said good morning from Australia, and I guess you have to say really good morning yesterday, and I should say good day tomorrow from here. And David and Linda and everybody else as they come on. And what we're going to do tonight is we're going to continue working with Merrily Kiss the Quaker, doing a Celtic fiddle tune, and of course many of the fiddle tunes actually derived from pipe tunes earlier. And I've corrected the mistake I had in the B part. There's a couple different variations of this, and I mixed up two of them as I put in as I wrote out the B part, the second part. And this song is a little unusual for dance tunes, is that it has an A and a B and a C part. The kind of the classic form is two A's and two B's, and you repeat that several times, and then you go to another tune. And in this case, you have two A's and two B's and two C's. Now, I've only written out one of the A parts and one of the B parts and one of the C parts, so you have to remember to do them twice. And I've written them out a little more clearly this time, I think. So I think let's start by going over the part that we had already, which is the A part. And you may or may not have had a chance to practice to memorize this. Now, as soon as you start working with single note pieces on the Strumstick, there's no getting around memorization and practicing the series of notes, because it's like if you're going to give a speech and you get the words all mixed up, it's not much of a speech. And the same thing is true of a tune. Now, I've worked my way around that a lot I do a lot of improvising. I've arranged it so that the ensembles I play in and the kinds of music I perform, I give myself a lot of leeway to do things differently each time through if I need to, because I don't like sitting down and memorizing things. And you may be in the same camp as me and not like sitting down and memorizing things. But I do find, as from time to time, I need to memorize something, there are some tips and some tricks that really make a difference in the process of memorization. So as I go through the A part that we already have on this, I'm going to talk to you about some things that will help the process of memorizing it. The first tip is divide and conquer. And that means do things in chunks. And they can start out as very small chunks, and then several chunks can come together to make a medium-sized chunk, and then a couple of medium-sized chunks can come together to make like maybe a whole line of a part of a piece of music. So you're going to work on pieces. So if we look up at the very top line here, it says A, and we have 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 2, 1, blah, 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 blah. By the time you get about over to here, the numbers don't mean anything. Now, here's one of the tricks for reading tablature and using it to memorize pieces of music on the Strumstick. Is you're used to, if we look up at the line where I have written Merrily Kiss the Quaker, you read that faster than I can say it out loud. Your eye goes, Merrily Kiss the Quaker. And out loud, it's Merrily Kiss the Quaker. So we're used to our eyes going vroom and just scanning right across. And from practice, we have learned to absorb the information that the letters and the syllables and the spaces between use to convey us that written information. So reading is at hyperspeed compared to piecing out tablature bit by bit. Now, the same is true with reading music. If reading music is a skill that you have acquired, when you read music, if you've practiced enough, you also can read it almost as quick as you would read words. But if you've never acquired that skill, learning to play the notes from tablature is kind of like reading music. And I don't actually recommend that you read tablature, that you ever get the transfer of information from tablature as fast as reading is. I think the way of approaching tablature is it's a guide to communicating what the notes are that you're going to play and memorize. So it's a memory aid, not a device that's optimized for reading. Written music is in some ways optimized in the direction of being a graphic reading tool where the positions of the notes are the thing that give you a lot of the information, not the specific shape of the note. Now, the specific shape of the note in written music does give you information about the rhythm, but its position on the staff, visual relationships, are a different way of acquiring information than knowing that the letter M sounds like and A, Li. So the way we read, once we've learned to read, is rather graphic also because we're going by the shapes of the letters. But in the case of tablature, the numbers have meanings and the numbers refer to frets and so on. So with all that said, so I would say take the first 0, 0, 1, 0. I can't believe it. I did it again. Okay, so I wrote 0, 0, 1, 0, and it should be 0, 0, 1, 2. Okay, so this little 0 needs to be a 2. And obviously I need a full-time proofreader because I've played this thing through 8 times thinking that I was reading the notes, but because I already know the tune, when I got to here, oh yeah, that's right. It sounds right. Oh yeah, that's it. But it's a 0. And I should be playing a 2, and I'm playing a 2, and I should have written the 2 there. So, mea culpa. You're going to have to pencil that in. 0, 0, 1, 2, 0, 2, 3, 2, 1, 2, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 0. Yeah, okay, that's all right. So those first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 notes, 0. That's a natural little unit right there. Now I'm taking my hand there away so you can see that I'm moving over to the second string for that open. You wouldn't have to take your hand away. Okay, now you notice I put a little apostrophe by that 0 this time, and I didn't have that on before. The apostrophe is a little graphic that I'm going to use just to indicate that you're going to muffle that note. Now, because it's a non-fretted note, you have to touch it with either your left hand or your right hand to muffle it. And since your pick is busy dancing across the strings, it's probably easier to touch it with a finger on the left hand. Now, we're not going to worry about that for now, but as we start to put it together, that's a muffled note. And you'll see there's a few other notes in there. I've put that little muffled apostrophe on. And in fact, there's a lot more places where you can muffle to create a little punctuation accent. So we'll be going through those after we get the rest of the notes down. So 0, 0, 1, 2, 0. And then the next section, 2, 3, 2, 1, 0. 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 0. There we go. 2, 3, 2. See, this is how slow it is when especially if I'm talking at the same time, to read these out loud. Here's the speed at which I can actually read this. And this 0 here also needs to be a 2. If you played it as a 0, it would be. People might never even notice that you didn't play the 2. So it would, if you play it as it's written, it's okay. Now, so here's where we run into that thing: is that your eye wants to run ahead. So when you get yourself on this line, you want to go through, 3, 1, 2, 1, 0. But you can't translate that into what your finger has to do and then pick those notes and then play them that fast. So one of two bad things happens. Either you don't play everything that you've looked at, or you stop seeing what you're looking at and either are playing sort of from memory if you've pre-memorized it, or you're playing something that you made up completely, which is great for creative composition, but not good for playing a traditional tune. So this is to emphasize that you really have to slow down to memorize working from tablature. And that's the whole first line now. So you could work on, this first inch, the second inch, the third inch, and the fourth inch. That's one way to think of breaking it down. And then put the first and second inch together, and then put the third and the fourth inch together. So the first grouping. Now, once you've got those two groups, memorized or pretty close to memorized, so you're not looking at the numbers trying to do it anymore, then you can speed it up a little and it'll start to hang together as a melody, and then it starts to really stick in your brain. When you're still playing it slowly, it's almost like you have to put your musical attention into slow motion so you can hear the melody as a flow, even though you're breaking it down more than you might actually ever play it. And the more you're thinking about what you have to do physically, the harder it is to keep track of which note to play. So all by way of saying, don't be distressed when you make 40,000 mistakes in the course of learning this. If you're making mistakes frequently, go slower. And focus, focus, focus. If you're looking at the numbers, look at the numbers and let the numbers speak to you its information. 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 2, 3, 1. That's the kind of attention you need to have on it when you're doing it if you want to have the fewest number of mistakes and get through it as quickly as possible. So that's the first line. The second line. And I have, that 0 right there should be a 2. And hey, I got it right there. So the second line starts almost the same as the first line, and then the very ending of it is different than the very ending of that line. So once you realize that, oh, wait a minute, this sequence is the same as from here all the way over to here, it becomes easier because you've already memorized a chunk. So the whole first line. And now that last little ending bit where it goes 0, 1, 2 on the first string, 0, 1, 2 on the second string, and then open, open, 3, and 2. That's the end of the first line. It's also the end of the second line. It's also the end of the third line. So it's the end of the A part, it's the end of the B part, it's the end of the C part. So you're going to get a lot of mileage out of that part. And if you look at my left hand, it's, the 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2. It's kind of like you're walking your way up, and then you take a step over and walk your way up. So it's, and then it's open, open, 3rd fret, 2nd fret on the 4th string. And you'll see that it's surprisingly quick. Once you kind of get over the hump of trying to suck the information faster than you actually can comprehend it, the progression of memorizing these sections goes pretty quick. Now, the B part. The B part has a very, it's hard to tell when you just look at all those, numbers. It looks like you're reading in trinary there. But this group here and this group here in the second half of that line, exactly the same, with the exception of just this pickup note here. So it's 0, 2, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 2, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 2, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0. Now, it might help you to say the numbers out loud when you read them. I've had some success with that, and many people swear by that. So if you say, instead of going, just thinking 0, 2, 0, 0 in your head, instead you go 0, 2, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 2, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0. There's something about their saying 0, 0 that makes you think, oh, it's 0, 0, boom, boom. Whereas if you go, it doesn't stick in your head as 0, 0 quite the same way. So that's a third tip on that. 0, 2, 0, 0. Now, if you want to skip that pickup note, so you're doing exactly the phrase that's going to repeat there, it's 2, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 2, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0. So there's like 4 triplets, 4 groups of 3 there. 2, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 2, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0. So you could just go. See, it has a rhythm all its own because of the this and the this and the this and the this. So you've got 0, 2, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 2, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0. And then we have, our familiar little 1, 0, 1, 2. Now it's a little different here than what we did before when we did the 0, 1, 2 there, but it's close. So and you'll notice that 2 there has the apostrophe on it to muffle it, to cut it off. That means just release it. And that sort of separates it from those other 2s that come right after it. The same is true with the apostrophe that I didn't mention on the 1 up in the first line. Where I get into context. Okay. There's another mistake in here. So. Maybe you should find another Strumstick teacher. Because I can't tell you how many times I played through that thinking that section was right, but it's wrong again, and I'm going to show you exactly the correct notes for in there. So we got 0, 2, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 2, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 1. So we're starting from right here. 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 0, 1, 1, 1. 2, just like the end of that section on the first line. Okay, and I'll play that whole first line of B over again completely, so you'll have one reference without any talking going on it. That's the correct way to play it. And then it repeats the... And now we're at the ending of the first line. There it is. So the whole B part. And I'm going to do it once more and slightly break it into sections. And that's the B part. Now, as always, if you, like when you play in this third string, you might brush the second string on either of those notes accidentally, or you might do it on purpose. So you can throw strums in anywhere, even if you're doing the single notes, because if you were playing Highland pipes, for example, you'd be having either, I'm not sure the exact notes. I'm going to say that I'm going to talk in terms of D and A here. You'd be playing a D and an A drone, while your chanter, the little pipe that you play the melody on, would be playing notes against those drones. So if you're playing this on a fiddle, you would reach over and hit some open strings, as we talked about last week, to get some harmonies with some of those notes. Now, on the C part, and we'll find out if I got this one right. We've got 0, 0, 2, 0, 1, 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, which doesn't mean anything until you get the rhythm to it. It's 0, 0, 2, 0, 1, 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 0, 2, 0. And if you'll notice, I've kind of grouped these into threes. There's the little pickup note, and then there's this 3, and this 3, this 3, and this 3. And I put a tiny little extra space between those groups to make it a little easier. So that first group of 4 notes is a pickup note, and then bum, bum, bum. And then, and then, and then, and then, and then, now it ends with the same grouping as the end of the B part and the end of the A part. So the beginning of this, let's take this, just this first 2 inches here. Okay, that's da 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 da. If you're going to say the numbers, you can't say the strings and the numbers at the same time, but it's 0, 0, 2, 0, 1, 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 0, 2, 0. And you've got to change to the second string here, and a change to the third string here. So this you'll need to pay attention. 0, 0, 2, 0, 1, 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, and the dip representing the shift down to a string. And then the second half of that, so 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 2, 0, 2. I'm going to take it from here so you have the lead in to this. So I'll take it from the 0, 2. Okay, and that's another that ends, that phrase kind of ends on the second fret on the second string. And then as we go to the bottom line, 0 1 0 2 0 2. See the first three, the second three, the third three. 0 1 0 2 0 2 1 2 1 0. And this is like a zigzag. Dum bum bum dum bum bum dum bum bum bum. Now, there's a variation. Many people play this rather than going the zigzag. Bum 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 bum. They play the what would be the equivalent of the first string open as the place that you zig to every time. So that would be and if you want to play the first string open by going third string second fret, that's the same pitch as first string open. So you would have, and then it's just the second string, the first string, and the second string again, drop down a fret, second string, first string, second string again, drop down a fret, second string, first string, second string again, and then open. So it's still got a zigzag effect, but you're keeping a constant note on the zag, zigzag, like that. Or as written, there's a little more lift to it because you're following a snaky melody as it goes down there. So you can learn that both ways, and then our ending. And we're done. That's the end of the lesson. No, so that's we're done with going through the melody. Anybody has any questions, please hop in. And if you want to, you can use like stars and exclamation points and asterisks to indicate your displeasure at my repeat mistakes on the B part. I will not be offended. I will be beating myself over the head with a fly swatter when I'm done to make the lesson stick. And I'll have to fix this again and correct it and put it on the web page again. Okay, so now we've got this melody. We've memorized it, say. Okay, now what do we do with it? So it's the rhythm is a jig, as we said, 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3, or 1 2 3 4 5 6 1 2 3 4 5 6 1 2 3 4 5 6. And there's kind of a different ways of accenting that 1 2 3 4 5 6 1 2 3 4 5 6, or if you counted it 1 2 3 1 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3, you can have a very strong accent on the first 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3, and a secondary accent on the 4 1 2 3 4 5 6 1 2 3 4 5 6. Or you could have the secondary accent on the 1 1 2 3 4 5 6 1 2 3 4 5 6 1 2 3 4 5 6. Or you could have them both be equally weighted. 1 2 3 4 5 6 1 2 3 4 5 6 1 2 3 4 5 6. And there's a different feel, and if you're playing for dancers, they will get a different communication from each of those. If you listen to different recordings of this tune played by different Celtic bands, you'll probably hear some different phrasings and some different accenting patterns. And for now, we're going to keep it as, if you're going to do any accenting at all, start with 1 2 3 4 5 6, or 1 2 3 1 2 3. So slight emphasis on the one beats on each of these. So. And so here we have those muffled notes. Let's leave out that muffling on the open string. That's really kind of tricky, and that's going to throw you off. We'll keep the muffling on just fretted notes just for now. So we have. So the first one I've indicated that's not an open string is this one here, but you could muffle in here also, because there's a little pause after that 3, so you can muffle there to accentuate the pause. Here it is. Then you see the pause comes in the same spot rhythmically in the next phrase. No, I only wrote the 1 in because I didn't want to jumble this up with a whole lot of apostrophes in there, but I wanted to put it down so that you had an indicator for some of those. Now on the second line, again that 3, you see when I hop like that, that's me indicating that I'm cutting it off. You don't need to hop to cut it off. You just have to release the finger slightly. You don't even have to take it away. You just stop squeezing and it stops. So I'm on the second line. And you don't have to do any cuts in those last couple notes there. Then on the second line, now you could do little cuts on these 2s and 1s. And that makes it feel a little more like a pipe playing, where they'll do a stopped note, or sometimes other little pipe unique ornaments to make that note stand out, a little blip kind of thing that they do. So you could think of the 2, the 1, the 2, the 1, punctuate them. Now, here's the effect of cutting those off or not cutting those off up to speed in sequence. So I cut off this one, but I didn't cut off these. Now with those cut off. It's subtle, but it gives a little more life to the rhythm. Now if you're playing it quite slowly, it's more noticeable, but the impact of that little thing is not as lifting of the rhythm when you're practicing it slowly. So that's the first little elements we can put in this to start to bring the tune to life a little more would be those little cuts there, and that obviously has to follow you having already memorized the melody, and now you're starting to actually work with the melody. In the third part, see, that's a spot. So I muffled the open string by just closing my hand on it. And that's 0 0 2 0 1 0 1 2 0 1 0 2 0, and then we have the apostrophe on the open string there and the apostrophe on the 1 here. The first string's a little easier to muffle because you just kind of close your hand slightly. But if you're going to muffle the second string, you kind of have to muffle everything. That's why I was skipping those 2 ones up there for now. So and then the zigzag line. You don't need to do any cuts in there, although you could. sorry. You know what? That all goes bum 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 bum. I don't think cut anywhere in there. And then, so there's the whole thing from the accenting perspective. Now, we did say you could strum all the strings all the way through this. Now, if you're going to strum all the strings, notice that if you're playing second string open and you're playing first string open and you're strumming all three strings, those two notes sound exactly the same because you're getting all three and you're getting all three. However, this note is in it or this note is in it. So you will hit some spots where it seems like, well, if I play the note singly, I hear that note, but if I strum all three, it sounds like I'm doing first string open. That's the way it is with the drone instrument. So if it's an open string and you hit all three, you got it. It's a free note. You don't have to do any fingers for it. So so if we're going, this is a good example there because we have 0 0 1 2, second string open. It sounds almost like I'm going instead of, but that note's there, that's the right note. If you're playing single notes, you'd hear it as the right note. When you do this, it's still there, but it has a harmony note that's a little higher than it next to it. So take it again. So that's just doing the strumming all the way through, up to speed. 1 2 da 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 da. Now you might, I don't know if you noticed, I did some extra up strums in there because I'm really going like this. Down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. So since I'm playing a rhythm part and the lead part together, I let that keep going in a few spots where there were pauses. Right there. Instead of going, I went da 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 or da 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 da. So there, if you get the rhythm going steadily and you keep it going, or you get extra up strums in there in the spaces, that's perfectly okay. And then it repeats. And that's the A part with the strumming. Now, in some ways, it's easier when you're just strumming because you're not taking the extra brain power to reach over and to pick out the individual strings with your pick. And as we suggested last week, if you're playing the single notes, it may help a lot to rest your third and fourth finger against the edge of the strumstick and to drop your hand back a little farther where the strings are a little stiffer. The reason for that is you get more resistance to the string escaping the pick when you're back further. So when you pluck a note, you push it with the pick, the string stretches, and then the pick flexes enough so that the string escapes and sounds. Okay, it's been stretched, it slips off the pick as the pick flexes, and it rings. When you do that in the looser area of the strings towards the middle, it takes more time for that stretch to happen before the release happens. The string is not putting as much force on the pick, so the pick doesn't flex and release as quickly. So you could say there's a tiny delay between when you move the pick down and when the sound happens when you're playing single notes, and that delay is greater in the middle than it is back here. Now, the negative part of playing back here is you have to push harder to get the string to release. But working in those higher force levels tends to make your rhythm more steady once you get used to applying the extra force. So if you go like this, even right now, and then go. It's much easier. You could play quieter here. It's hard to play that quieter here. It doesn't always want to slip off the pick smoothly. So drop back a little behind the sound hole, push firmly, make every note distinct. Be authoritative with each note. Almost like you're trying to make it too loud. Until you get the rhythm going smoothly, then you'll find you can back off. So whenever you have, if you, at any point you have little irregularities in volume or little irregularities in timing with a rhythm, it can be advantageous to play it a little louder and push it a little harder so you're working at higher force levels. You're not trying to be, your hand is not working in the subtle zone, it's working in the brute force zone. And it sort of overcomes the little irregularities while you're practicing. So I'm suggesting drop back here if you're playing single notes. And that's why when people play flat pick guitar, when they play mandolin, they play the Irish bouzouki, and things like that, they use, very often they use a very stiff pick. Some people use picks made out of stone that don't flex at all. Some people use various kinds of bone and other natural materials that hardly flex at all. But when you're strumming, you really want that little bit of flex in the pick. Now right now I'm playing with a good, fairly firm medium pick. This is an even stiffer medium pick. Compared to I have to do a different force thing with my hand with this pick than I do with this pick, and I can feel the difference. So if you're going to work with single notes, you might want to move from the light gauge pick, the very flexy pick that's really good for strumming. You might want to try a medium or even a heavy gauge pick, and then you have to adapt to that extra force involved with those. But you'll find that that pays advantages in the long run with precision and keeping the timing as you build up your tempo. And the people, the fabulous fast flat picking guitar players use, almost all of them use heavy picks, and that's where they get the maximum speed. Now, they have to push harder to get that speed, but they don't have any of this little delay while the string is stretching, waiting for the note to happen. And the faster the tempo, the quicker the notes are coming, the more that delay tends to interfere with getting your notes in on time. So there's kind of a technical discussion of, pick gauges and as pertains to single note picking on stringed instruments. But if you're going to do the strumming on all three, you're perfectly fine using your thin pick that you're accustomed to, or a medium pick, either way. So here's the strumming on the B part. Now you can, if you start to think about whether to do an upstrum or a downstrum, you may have trouble. It might be helpful to just let that go. I didn't do any thinking about, should I do this note with a down or an up? My hand was going down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, and I just fingered the notes in the time that they're supposed to be. In some ways, that might be an advantageous way to learn the melody, so you're not adding the horsepower to think about the single string, which string to hit with the pick. If that works for you, then by all means do that. So that's the B part. And again, the melody will sound a little different with all those upstrums in compared to playing the single notes. So in effect, what we're doing when we do the strumming is we're sort of blurring over the pauses that are in this melody. Da 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 da. See, there's a one beat after that. Da 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 da. That is left out to give the melody some, variation in its rhythm, some lift to it. And as I say, when we're strumming, we're sort of blurring those over. But if you cut off the notes before where those spaces would be, you've drawn the attention to the note that accomplishes the same thing, and you're getting a full sound. Now, the second reason to start to work with the strumming, let's go through the C part before I do that. Or you could just do that as a run down, 3rd fret. Or you could do, because if you're going, if you're hitting the open string, that second variation, the 1st string open, it's all there in the strumming. Now if you're going to play the finger zigzag, so this one, you're going to need to finger. That one you don't have to finger because it's just... Now if you don't like the dissonance of this note and this note ringing at the same time, what, you never drove in New York? You can muffle this note so you don't hear it ringing against the 1st string open. Or hear the difference there. But that's an extra, you gotta spend a little brain power to muffle that note if you're doing the strumming. And I'll do that a little slower. Can you see my finger hop up and come back down? Which finger am I using here? And since you're lifting this finger as you do an up strum there, probably, you're doing the same motion with both, you know, this is an up and this is an up conceptually, so it's a little easier than it would be otherwise. So there I'm muffling that note. Now if I don't muffle it, and I like the tension of that little clashy thing in there. If you don't, you can lift to muffle it. So then that's the first part there. That's the end line. And then our ending, that's the same. Okay, so now here's the whole thing with the strumming. And of course the ending could have been... Now, I'm doing that at, you know, up to a fairly high speed so you can hear the tempo of it, and that you're going to be playing more like... Now, I find a good strong left foot, thump, bump, 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 marking out the accents, kind of helps me keep in sync. It's people argue about whether you should ever tap your foot when you're playing music or not, but if you go to an Irish session, there is a lot of tapping going on. Sometimes it's not a stomp, sometimes it's just a little heel lift. And it can be handy because you can kind of get that going automatically, and that will, then it gives you something, if you start to rush through a section or play sluggishly in a section, you'll sort of notice the difference between the strum rhythm and the foot rhythm. So you can add that in later if you want to. And as you know what, we don't have a baron player here, so this is a little stomp. So it adds a little percussion to it. Now, the next thing, we've gone through it, a whole thing, 2 A's, 2 B's, 2 C's. The next trick that you can do with this is if you put your forearm against the bridge and strum in here. Remember we talked about this right hand, this forearm muting. You're still hearing notes because I'm touching just barely in front of the bridge. Right in here, and the strings don't completely disappear. If I touched way up here, they stop ringing completely. But here you get a muted sound. You could play let's take a little slower. Completely different sound with that muffling. So I'm going to play the A part with the regular strumming, and I'm going to play it with the muffled with this arm, and then show you one more thing with that. And then so it's a real transition. So you might think of doing that as you go through the tune, the whole tune, the second time. If you can practice that little muffling thing there. Now there's another thing you can do with that muffle, which is you can kind of lift it. So let me see if I can get this going here. So if you can hear that, there's the muffling's coming in and out, and it's almost a physical emulation of a Highland piper applying pressure on the bagpipe bag. Now, the way the pipes work is the mouthpiece that you're blowing into, you're blowing continually into the bag to keep the bag inflated. And what makes accent notes in the drone notes and in the chanter, the pipes that you're fingering on, is a little extra squeeze with the arm to give a little extra volume when you want an accent. And of course, when you're inhaling on the the blowpipe, you have to when you're taking air in, you have to stop blowing. So you have to keep the pressure going by a steady squeeze. So there's a lot of technique to the right elbow and forearm, squeezing for accent and squeezing to keep the airflow going when you stop to take a breath, which is one of the reasons why the Highland pipes are challenging. But this little thing here is kind of a physical emulation of that. So that's the third thing that you can do with this tune as you get farther along in it. All right, so now we've got about 5 minutes left. The next thing to embellish and work with this is a lot of these notes could be hammered on or pulled off. Okay, so if you remember hammering on, you play the string open and you slam your finger onto a fret, or you play it with a fret and you hammer onto another fret while keeping the first fret that you fingered still there. So it's the vibrating energy of the string from the first picking is still making the string ring. So you're not picking again. So hammering on and pulling off. Pull off is kind of literally plucking the string with this hand. It might be a push or a pull, depending on which string you're on. We'll just say it's a pull all the time for now. It might brush, if you're on the second string pulling off, you might slightly hit the first string. That's fine. Okay, so what those are doing is you're getting a second note without having to pick again, but it also makes a legato change of the note. It goes smoothly. There's no moment of silence between those two, as there is when you're going. Okay, so if you hold a fingered note until the very, 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 very last microsecond and then pick the open string, you still have the articulation of the pick re-energizing the string, so those will always sound like bum 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 bum. They won't sound like ba woo. See, with your voice you can go ah ah, two different notes without an extra articulation, but with picking a note you have to go ah 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 ah. But with the pull off or the hammer on, there's no extra articulation other than the little snap kind of from the pull off there. So if we go through this, and remember the first line is 0 0 1 2, not my 0 that I wrote there. So you could hammer on the first note and finger and pluck the second fret. So I've got open, hammer on the first fret, and then pluck that second fret note, or I could go open, fret the first fret note, and hammer on the second one. Or okay, two different sounds in the melody there. You could also hammer on both of these notes. And there I did a pull off and a pull off. Now listen to the difference. So let me break that down actually. So I've got 0, hammer on first fret, hammer on second fret, play open, second string open, and then so those are plucked notes in between, the double hammer on, then open string, fretted, fretted, fretted. Now here, I'm going to fret the second fret note, but I'm going to leave my first finger there. Pull off from second fret to first fret, and then first fret to open. So there I've got a whole series of hammered on pull-offs and then hammer on the other string as I went on from there. And it gives a whole different lilt to as if you articulated each of those. Compared to, sorry, take it in sequence. Okay, you might even go, but I think you need those last two notes, boom, boom. You need the articulation there. Okay, so if you see where all the places I hammered on there, see, instead of did this last. You can decide that you're going to do sometimes and sometimes. And that's what I did sort of near the end of that. That last, I decided to strum that because I wanted the shift from the not smoothness of the hammering on and pulling off. So, and there's several other places in this. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to play through this, and I will be doing some hammering on and some pulling off, and maybe in a couple places where we didn't show. And sometimes I may play this note instead of first string open, because I could hammer that on. I can't hammer on an open note. You can't go open, open, but you can go open and the same note fretted. It's like hammering on from here to here, which, like I say, they're different strings. You can't do that, but you can hammer the same note. Sorry, I have to do a little faster here. 1, 2, 3. One more try. 1, 2, 3. Sorry, I'm thinking about which thing I want to show you there. So as soon as you start to think in the middle of something like that, you're lost. But you get the idea. The hammering on, the pulling off, as another high level, variation that you can do. I've got a whole stack of things that are all resting on learning the melody and being able to play the notes individually, and then with the strumming, and then with the muffled arm, and then with the hammering on, and so on. So, and yes, 6/8 is a great. It's once you get it up to speed, it's just such a happy, lifting rhythm to play. So, I'm going to say good night to everybody, and I'm going to play this through a time or two, and I may play it well, I may not. This tune is not part of my regular repertoire, so I have to practice it to play it well, just like you do. And practice is where it's at. But I'm going to just sort of throw caution to the winds and play it at a pretty lively speed here and see if I can do a couple of different things just for fun. And I will otherwise see you next Thursday night, and I hope everyone is well and safe this week. And thank you for tuning in. This is always very fun for me, and I hope it is for you too. I know it is from the comments in general. So here we go. next week.